Robert Kiyosaki makes an urgent warning. We are on the brink of an economic collapse that could be even greater than the 2008 crisis. He points out that banks, currencies, and even the most common investments are vulnerable, and those who do not prepare could lose everything. Imagine seeing your money devalued, your savings frozen, while the markets collapse. This scenario is already in motion, and few are ready for the impact. But there is a strategy to come out of this not only protected but even wealthier. Kiyosaki reveals that with the right knowledge and a strategic vision, it is possible to turn this crisis into an opportunity to build wealth. In this video, we will explore these lessons so you can stay one step ahead and know exactly where to place your money now. Ready to discover how to protect and multiply your assets? Risks of the U.S. economy. Robert Kiyosaki, famous for his insights on finance, does not hesitate to warn about the risks surrounding the U.S. economy. He points to something that few openly discuss: the risk of collapse of the bond market and the American economy itself. It seems complex, but imagine that the government continues to print money as if there were no tomorrow. This creates high inflation that devalues every dollar you earn with such effort. To protect yourself, financial planning has never been more important than it is now. The excessive printing of money, which Kiyosaki calls fake money, causes inflation that erodes the purchasing power of ordinary people. It is pointless to work hard and save your money if, in the end, it loses value every month that passes. This is not just a theory. Just look at the price of food, fuel, housing. Everything is more expensive. If you have noticed that your savings buy less and less, this is the practical effect of inflation. But why is the bond market at risk? Essentially, the government sells bonds to finance itself, but the return for those who invest in them has been getting smaller and smaller. The problem is that many of these bonds are bought with money that was, believe it or not, printed by the government itself. It's as if someone is trying to pay off debts by creating more debts. This forms a snowball that could explode and cause a crisis even bigger than that of 2008. This comparison with the 2008 crisis is not exaggerated. At that time, we saw large banking institutions collapse, and those who suffered the most were those who were unprepared. Just like back then, the time to act is now, before the next big crisis arrives. He reminds us that extra income and financial planning can be what separates those who come out unscathed from the storm from those who are left at the mercy of the system. And don't think this is just a problem for the United States. The consequences of this potential collapse extend beyond borders. An American economic crisis could affect the entire world, and many countries that rely on the dollar for their transactions would see their economies shaken as well. Amid this uncertainty, it is important to seek financial knowledge and adopt a strategic posture. Understanding the impact of these risks can help you think of ways to protect your money. For those who want to take precautions, he suggests alternative investments that might offer more security. Now, this doesn't mean putting all your chips in one place. Diversification is crucial. A financial protection strategy includes more than just saving money in the bank. It may be time to explore ways to generate extra income, something that brings returns and security in times of crisis. The constant printing of money could cause the bond market and the economy to implode. It is essential that we all prepare for this potential collapse by keeping an open mind to investments that could offset this devaluation of money. For those closely observing the movements of the economy, there is much to learn and apply. The journey to protect what you have and pursue the desired wealth begins by understanding these signs. After all, if the economy is at risk, how can we prepare? Investment in precious metals. Kiyosaki is direct in stating that the money we use daily, paper currency, is far from real money. He likes to call the dollar fake money and argues that, with the Federal Reserve's frantic pace of printing, the real value of money is falling. This is where precious metals like gold and silver come in. Assets he considers a kind of insurance against this constant devaluation. They are finite, cannot be printed, and have value recognized around the world, a viable alternative to paper money. When you invest in gold or silver, you are not just storing wealth, you are protecting yourself against the loss of value of paper money. Imagine that each gram of gold you own has a stable value, while the value of each dollar fluctuates like a seesaw. Instead of being at the mercy of the dollar's fluctuations, gold and silver can be a way to keep your purchasing power intact, which is essential for anyone seeking financial planning. Kiyosaki's idea is that gold and silver are real assets, meaning they do not depend on trust in the government or the banking system. It's as if you are storing something that will continue to hold value regardless of crises. While the dollar loses value with every crisis, gold and silver maintain a more stable relationship with wealth over time. And it's not just for large investors. Anyone who wants a secure extra income can start investing in metals, even in small quantities. He often reminds us that the value of precious metals usually increases in times of crisis. It's not by chance. When confidence in paper money decreases, more people seek tangible assets, and the price of gold rises. Those who invested in these metals before the major crises saw their wealth increase while other assets devalued. Thus, investing in gold and silver can be a strategic measure for those looking to protect themselves from future economic uncertainties and build a reserve of value. The idea of accumulating gold and silver is not about fashion or speculation, but about smart financial planning. These metals have been used as currency for thousands of years and maintain their value while government currencies come and go. He emphasizes that even in times of stability, it is important to have these assets as protection, a type of plan B that, in the long run, can become a foundation of wealth. Another advantage of investing in precious metals is the ease with which they can be converted into cash anywhere in the world. Unlike many assets, gold and silver are accepted globally. This means you have something tangible that can be transported and sold if necessary. This flexibility is crucial in times of crisis. The liquidity of these metals can be a significant advantage for those in need of quick access to financial resources. With a strategic vision, investing in gold and silver becomes a way to shield wealth against imminent financial crises. It's not just about owning these metals, but understanding the role they can play in a volatile economic scenario. Thus, precious metals become more than just a reserve. They are a way to prepare for an uncertain future and ensure that the effort to accumulate wealth is well protected. Crisis in the banking sector. Robert Kiyosaki has a serious warning about the banking sector, predicting a new crisis that could shake the major banks in the United States and Europe. He points out that many of these banks are supported by an unstable system, and the consequences of a fall could be enormous. When we see the example of Credit Suisse, which suffered a 31% drop in its stock, it gives an idea of the gravity of the situation. For him, understanding this fragility is essential for anyone who wants to protect themselves financially and avoid falling into banking traps. The situation of Credit Suisse, which needed a $54 billion bailout from the Swiss National Bank, reinforces what Kiyosaki has been warning about. He draws a parallel with what happened in 2008 with Lehman Brothers, when the collapse of a bank triggered a series of bankruptcies and global losses. It is a warning that without proper financial planning, many could find themselves trapped when banks fail. History has shown that blindly trusting the banking system can be a dangerous mistake. What is concerning is that many banks have been operating over the years as if there were no risk of collapse. Instead of focusing on ensuring the safety of customer deposits, they have been betting on risky operations, such as low-interest loans and speculative investments. When profit is the priority, customers' money ends up being exposed. And this includes the money that people save for emergencies, extra income, or even for future investments, putting the stability of entire families at risk. He suggests that anyone who still trusts the banking system as the sole source of financial security is walking on thin ice. In times of crisis, we have seen how banks struggle to maintain operations and protect customers' money. This blind trust is a recipe for trouble, especially if a domino effect occurs where several banks collapse one after the other. So the question is not if this will happen, but when. Therefore, it is essential to seek alternatives to protect wealth and ensure that financial planning does not depend exclusively on banks. If banks are vulnerable, it is smart to think about diversification, whether in other assets like precious metals or even bolder alternatives. For those who are attentive, this is the time to rethink where and how your money is being saved. After all, the risk of losing accumulated wealth is real, and no one wants to be caught off guard. There is a clear lesson for those who want to build wealth. Do not trust all your financial security to a single institution. Instead, adopt a broader and more strategic approach. Seeking ways to keep your money safe from an unstable banking system can be an important differentiator. This type of prudence, he says, separates those who are financially wise from those who are just waiting for the next problem to occur. While many still wonder what they can do to protect their money, Kiyosaki is already hinting that traditional solutions may not be enough. In times of crisis, simply relying on banks to safeguard accumulated wealth is a risky bet. With the economic landscape becoming increasingly volatile, he suggests that people be ready to explore alternatives and think beyond conventional financial security methods. After all, in times of uncertainty, a good strategy is the best ally. Warning of future crises and possible bailouts. Kiyosaki goes further by warning about what he believes to be an impending banking crisis, mentioning the possibility of so-called bailouts. This term may sound strange, but it directly affects your wallet. In a crisis, banks may use the money of their own depositors to save themselves. This means that the money you leave saved for emergencies or long-term planning could end up being frozen or used to pay off the bank's debts. It is an alarming concept that reinforces the importance of protecting your assets carefully. A bail-in is different from a conventional bank bailout. Instead of the government injecting external money to save the bank, it uses the resources of the customers. Imagine that you worked hard, planned your life, saved your savings, and suddenly, that money is used to prevent the bank's bankruptcy. This is the kind of risk that many are still unprepared for, but which is already a reality in various parts of the world. The idea that your resources could be frozen or redirected by the bank is frightening, and people need to be aware of this risk. Many believe that having money in a bank account is the safest option, but in times of crisis, this security can be illusory. It is a reminder that, no matter how stable the system seems, past crises have shown us how vulnerable it can be. For those planning their future, it is worth reflecting on whether relying solely on banks is the best option. One example he likes to cite is the account holders in Greece and Cyprus who faced bail-in situations amid their financial crises. Deposits above a certain value were frozen or used to rescue collapsing banks, leaving customers without access to their own money. Kiyosaki brings this up as a reminder that any savings, anywhere in the world, can face such situations. Therefore, it is necessary to think of alternatives to protect the wealth you have worked so hard to build. If the crisis scenario becomes a reality, he predicts that this type of intervention will become more common, and many may find their savings locked away. And we are not talking about a distant theory, but a reality that has already occurred and can happen again. The only way to prepare is to be more strategic and seek other ways to save your money, away from a system that can't betray your trust when you need it most. One way to avoid being caught off guard by these bailouts is to think about alternatives such as physical assets or investments that do not directly depend on banks. If the risk of losing your money due to a banking crisis concerns you, it may be time to evaluate whether you are relying too much on the traditional financial system. For him, diversification is not just a precaution. It is a necessity for those seeking a stable financial future. This mindset of financial protection is something he advocates passionately. The idea is to ensure that even in a large-scale crisis, your money remains accessible and secure. Therefore, anyone looking to consolidate wealth and protect their assets needs to pay attention to the signals the market is already sending. After all, the opportunity to prepare comes before the crisis, never during. Alternative assets as protection. For those wishing to protect their money from devaluation and uncertainty, one path is to look beyond conventional options and consider investments in alternative assets such as Bitcoin, gold, and silver. He refers to these assets as real money, something that maintains stable value over time, unlike paper currency, which, as we have seen, can lose value due to inflation and economic crises. Having a financial plan that includes these assets is crucial for anyone seeking financial security in times of crisis. By investing in Bitcoin, gold, or silver, you protect yourself from the fluctuations and vulnerabilities of the dollar and other fiat currencies. Bitcoin, for example, has proven to be an alternative for those who prefer an asset that does not depend on banks or governments. With the recent fluctuations in the cryptocurrency market, he acknowledges that there are risks, but he also believes that Bitcoin is one of the most promising assets for those seeking financial independence. It is a limited digital asset, which, according to him, makes it a unique protection against inflation. In the case of precious metals, they are considered especially valuable in scenarios of economic instability. These metals have been a reliable store of value over the centuries and, unlike cryptocurrencies, can be tangible and physically transported. This gives them a special characteristic, as they are accepted and recognized as valuable worldwide. So, if you are looking for a way to consolidate your wealth, gold and silver offer proven security over time. These alternative assets serve as a form of shielding against crises, as their value does not depend on government policies or the actions of central banks. By owning gold, silver, or Bitcoin, you create a barrier between your wealth and the turbulence of the financial market. And he always reinforces that this type of investment is not just for the rich. With a financial planning approach and a long-term vision, anyone can start building this protection. Another advantage of these assets is that, in the event of a crisis, they are much less susceptible to freezes, like the BLINS we discussed earlier. Since Bitcoin, for example, is outside the control of banks, it can be accessed independently of issues in the banking system. This is the kind of resilience we need to face an increasingly unpredictable global economic scenario. Even if you hold small amounts in these assets, diversification is what can make the difference. For Kiyosaki, it is clear that the future of wealth involves a broader understanding of investment opportunities. It is not about completely abandoning traditional methods, but about balancing them with new alternatives that offer more security. With a scenario of high inflation and a possible dollar collapse, he sees gold, silver, and Bitcoin as pillars of a financial plan that can withstand future crises. For those looking to protect their wealth, these assets can be a key. Global financial instability. Financial instability is not limited to the United States. He believes we are facing a possible global recession that may surpass the impacts of the Great Depression. And what does this mean? He predicts that the effects could be devastating, affecting economies around the world and impacting the lives of millions of people. Unemployment, bankruptcies, and even an increase in the homeless population are scenarios he considers increasingly likely. For him, understanding this situation is essential for anyone wanting to protect their financial future. He notes that this global crisis may reflect the economic policies adopted over the last few decades, where many countries have followed the example of the United States, printing more money to cover deficits and boost economies. However, this quick solution comes at a high price, uncontrolled inflation, and a public debt that seems to grow without limits. In countries with weaker economies, the impact is even more intense, primarily affecting families that are already struggling to survive and highlighting the importance of good financial planning. This unstable global scenario creates a cascade of problems. Imagine, for example, companies that cannot sustain themselves due to declining consumption and end up closing their doors. This leads to increased unemployment, which in turn further reduces the purchasing power of the population. It is a vicious cycle that could lead to an even greater collapse if people are not prepared to act. For him, it is not about predicting the crisis, but knowing how to protect yourself when it arrives. The idea of a global collapse also affects financial markets. Instead of relying solely on stocks and bonds, people should consider a more diversified approach to preserve their wealth. In periods of instability like this, the value of traditional assets can plummet, and those without a protection strategy will pay a high price. Moreover, this is the time to think about sources of extra income. With the possibility of a global collapse, it is essential to seek alternatives that can bring stability. Working with income sources that do not directly depend on a specific economy can be a good way to protect yourself. Whether through investments, extra skills, or even side businesses, everyone should look for ways to maintain their wealth, even in difficult times. Above all, it is important to adopt a resilient mindset. The crisis can be an opportunity for those who are ready and willing to adapt. One of the biggest problems in times like this is the inertia of those who wait for the system to recover on its own without preparing. That is why he insists on reminding us that the opportunity to strengthen your financial planning is here, now, before difficulties worsen. While the scenario seems challenging, those who plan may not only survive but even thrive amid the recession. He invites people to delve into learning and to view the crisis as a chance to reevaluate their strategies. After all, every difficulty brings with it an opportunity, and those who are prepared to act may discover ways to build lasting wealth, even in times of uncertainty. Now that you understand the importance of preparing for uncertain times, what will you do next? The opportunities to protect and multiply your assets are out there, but it is action that will determine your future. Remember that those who anticipate crises are the ones who thrive, and this could be your chance to become one of them. How about starting to turn this vision into reality? To make this path even easier, I've left a pinned comment with a tool that will help you organize your finances. With it, You will be able to visualize expenses, plan savings, and truly make your money work for you. This small investment might be just what you need to advance toward financial freedom. Take advantage of this opportunity and ensure that each choice brings you closer to your goals. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep receiving powerful tips like these. Are you ready to build the financial security you've always dreamed of? The next step is in your hands.